Hello guys, welcome back to Channel 2S. I'm your host Second Soundwave, and it's finally time for some Gunpla news. I know I've been gone for a while, but there just wasn't a whole lot to talk about in January. Bandai pretty much put all their cards on the table back in December, so when January rolled around there just wasn't a whole lot of anything to talk about. However, there were still a couple of kits revealed last month, so we are going to be talking about those later in this video. First though, we got to talk about Re-Rise Season 2, because this just dropped today, tons of new kits, and man do they look awesome. So I'm really excited to talk Re-Rise today, but before we get any deeper into this video, we gotta thank our channel sponsor, New Type HQ. New Type HQ is a US-based Gunpla store for all your kits, tools, and supplies, and they don't just carry Gunpla, they also have a lot of other model kit lines as well, such as LBX. So if you want to give the LBX line a try for LBX February, be sure to check out the link in the description below and use code Channel2S for 10% off your first order. So with that out of the way, let's talk Re-Rise. So Gundam Build Divers Re-Rise is probably the first time in Gundam history we've had the second season of a Gundam series split into two smaller seasons. This is some serious Russian nesting doll stuff going on now, and I guess you could say it's a little bit worrying that they're splitting it up into smaller and smaller seasons. I don't know what that says about the longevity of the Gundam franchise, that they have to constantly subdivide their shows. But honestly, as long as the show's okay, I don't really care. What I care about the most when it comes to series like Build Divers though is the Gunpla, because that's really what these kind of shows are all about. Now Re-Rise Season 1 I thought was very hit or miss. On one hand we had the Core Gundam with its fully customizable swap out armor sets, which was a very cool idea that I thought they excellently executed. Unfortunately, this whole gimmick of the Core Gundam with its armors took up about half of the releases for Build Divers Re-Rise Season 1. And the other half of the line basically was 4 kits. And when that assortment of 4 kits includes absolute duds like the new Zeon Gundam and mediocre disappointments like the Celtsam, that's not a good success rate. And as a result, Re-Rise Season 1 just didn't really have enough good kits to pull me in. Thankfully though, Re-Rise Season 2 is changing all of that, because almost every single kit you're about to see today I absolutely love. So why don't we start our coverage of Re-Rise Season 2 with my favorite kit from these reveals, the Ureven Gundam. This is the 7th planet armor set for the Core Gundam, themed after the planet Uranus. The armor is big, it's beefy, it's powerful, it looks awesome, and it's a very obvious reference to the Age 1 full Glanza. The colors, the shape of the armor, those claw things jutting out of his shoulders, this screams full Glanza. Another cool thing about this Gundam is that the Age references don't end with the outer armor, because the new redesigned Core Gundam on the inside has a very large red shield that bears an awful strong resemblance to a certain weapon from the Age anime. Now, I'm not being vague about this because I don't want to spoil anyone in Gundam Age. I'm being vague about this because I'm literally not even exactly sure what this is. The only reason I even know that this is something from Age is because the full Glanza uses it in its finisher attack in one of the Extreme Versus games. Beyond the shield though, there are some other modifications and improvements made to the Core Gundam. The chest is different, the shoulders are different, the head's different. This is a newer, stronger Core Gundam for the bigger, beefier outer planet armors. Just like all the other planet armors, the Ureven does have the separated armor flight mode. Unlike the other planet armors we've seen so far though, the new Core Gundam can transform as well, although you should probably put the biggest air quotes possible around the word transform. But whenever Bandai takes a Gundam that's not supposed to transform and retools it to force in a transformation, this is usually about the best you can expect. But the good thing about these kind of half-assed flight modes is usually absolutely nothing is sacrificed in the mobile suit mode in order to make them happen, which means that if you don't like the flight mode, you don't have to display it that way and you'll never know the difference. So I'm going to give you guys one last chance to look at the awesome Ureven Gundam before we move on to the next kit. Alright, time's up, let's go. So this is the second new planet armor that was revealed today that I can only assume is Saturn 6 based off the previous numbering conventions. I'm going to call it Sat 6 for now. This armor is a yellowish brown color and it has a very bulky, heavily armed feel to it. As you can see in these flight mode pictures, there are some wheels on the back of the feet giving him some old school Heelys, and when combined with the Core Gundam that comes with the Ureven Gundam plus the build custom set that gives him his weapons, the end result is pretty awesome. Now, I don't like this quite as much as I do the Ureven, but it's still a pretty awesome looking armor, and I would definitely consider picking it up. And as was the case with the Mercury 1 armor, because the armor is sold separately from the Core Gundam, the weapons are also sold separately from the armor. Now, the weapons for the SAT-6 do seem to be a bit more simple than the previous ones we've seen. It's just a big old claw and a big old drill. And of course, because they're sold separately, you don't have to use them with this Gundam. You can use them with basically whatever you want. So next we have the kit that I thought would be stuck in limbo forever, the high-grade Wadom Pod. This was teased way back when Build Divers was first announced. They just showed a silhouette of this mobile suit and said now planning. And it took them so long to release this kit that I had completely given up hope on it. A few weeks ago, I reached the point where I concluded that there actually was no high-grade Wadom Pod, and that vague teaser was just a way of showing off that there would be some kind of kit for May without outright revealing that she was a mobile doll. As it turns out though, thankfully, I was wrong. Now, I gotta be honest with you guys, I'm not a fan of the Wadom. In fact, I'm not a fan of most of the designs from Turn A. However, I do like kits that have very unique and interesting construction. So while I'm not a fan of the end result, I could see myself picking up this kit just for the build experience alone. Another thing to note about this kit is because the Wadom Pod is a lot smaller than the Wadom from Turn A Gundam, which in case you didn't know is like 40 meters tall. It's an absolute monster. Because the Build Divers version is so much smaller, this is only a 2,500 yen kit, which is a little bit on the higher end for a high grade, but definitely pretty cheap for a Wadom. And Valkylander got an upgrade as well. We don't know a whole lot about it. There's not a whole lot I can say about it. I thought the previous Valkylander was pretty lackluster, so I have basically no hype at all for this one either. Alright, so I'm going to take a quick break from the new stuff that was announced today to rewind the clock just a little bit to January and talk about the enemy Core Gundam. This Gundam is basically an evil counterpart to the Core Gundam that takes a very strong influence from Gundam Age. I'm seeing a lot of Legiolis, Girarga, and Zadra going on in this design, and the gimmick of this Gundam is that just like the Core Gundam, you can take all of the armor off the mini Gundam inside, and you're left with a little creepy evil version of the Core Gundam. And the armor of the enemy Core Gundam is fully compatible with the armor of the standard Core Gundam, meaning you can take your Earth 3, you can take your enemy Core Gundam, and you can swap around parts however you like. And not only is the enemy Core Gundam fully compatible with the main Core Gundam, but thanks to the new reveals we got today, we've learned that it's also going to be getting its own armor upgrades. However, as you can tell by looking at this first image here, the enemy Core Gundam's armor, instead of being themed around planets, is themed around evil versions of past Gundams. So not only are we getting the enemy Core Gundam, we're also going to be able to make an enemy new Gundam. I can't say I'm a huge fan of how this specifically looks, but if they're going to do a whole line of evil versions of past Gundams, I am all over that. Now, just like the Mercury 1 and the Saturn 6, this is another set where the armor and weapons have to be bought separately from the Core Gundam, which means that if you want to build yourself an evil new Gundam, you're going to need an enemy Core Gundam, you're going to need this armor set, and then you're going to need the weapons pack that includes the rifle and funnels. Now, while we're here talking about this weapons pack, I gotta point out a couple things about it that I'm not a huge fan of. First of all, this gun just looks super lazy. Look at how much hollow space there is on this. This looks super, super, super cheap. Also not a fan of the fact that only 2 of the funnels on this whole funnel backpack appear to actually work. If you look at these 2 funnels on the outside, you can see some hinges on this one, you can see a hinge on this one, but it doesn't seem like there's hinges on these 2. And then when you look at the actual body of these 2 funnels, you realize they're actually one solid piece. There's also much more clearly no hinges on this funnel or this funnel. So they seem to be reverting back to the days of the high-grade High New Gundam where only 2 of the funnels for this kit will actually work. Now, considering that this is a completely standalone weapon set, I think that's kind of lazy. I would have understood the cost cutting if this was part of one larger set, but when we're already buying the funnels as an individual package, how hard would it have been to just give us a full set of funnel? It would have made this incredibly useful for customizing beyond just its use on this Gundam. Of course, there is the other perspective that because this is just in a little add-on set, you can buy 3 versions of the add-on set for a lot less than it would have been to buy 3 versions of the Gundam and build yourself a full set of fin funnels. In fact, now that I think about it, that's probably exactly what Bandai wants us to do. And what I believe is the final kit out of this new batch of images is the Triage Gundam. Now, I'm not 100% sure on the name for this because I couldn't find the actual info of it, but I have seen this picture thrown around a lot, and it is very obviously an official Gunpla picture, so I'm just gonna roll with it. As you can see, this is basically a mix of all the Age Gundams combined, or at the very least, an Age 2 and an Age 3. Now, you might be looking at the colors of this, you might be looking at the translucent green wings, and you might be going, This looks like a certain other mobile suit from the first season of Build Divers. And that's definitely something to think about. And while I'm not sure if I'm as big a fan of the Triage Magnum as I was of the Age 2 Magnum, it is still a pretty awesome kit. In fact, the more I look at this kit, the more it really does grow on me. And that is it for the Build Divers Re-Rise Season 2 announcements we got today. However, there's still some more kits I want to talk about that were announced back in January. So let's turn the clock back a month once again to take a look at Gers GPO 2. That's right, guys. We're finally getting the kit. Even though this kit was announced a month ago, we honestly don't have a whole lot more information on it now than we did back then. Now, the big question with this kit from pretty much the moment we saw it in the show is how are they going to do this as a kit? Is this a retool of the high-grade GPO2, or is it a brand new mold that's going to then get turned into a GPO2 revive? And well, based off these images, it's either reusing the old HTUC mold, or it's a really, really bad new mold. Because somehow, they actually managed to make the articulation of the GPO2 even worse. So the first thing you might notice about this image is they're really not being very ambitious with the posing. He's pretty much just standing there kind of hovering mid-air. His elbows aren't bent too deeply, his knees aren't bent very much at all, and Bandai tends to do that a lot when they're trying to hide just how bad the articulation on a kit is. And unfortunately, once we look at the second image we have of this kit, we can see why they were being so careful to hide the articulation, because this guy's got about a 20-degree elbow bend. I honestly cannot remember the last time I've seen an elbow bend this bad on a kit. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen an elbow bend this bad on a kit. And for a character that's supposed to be as agile and mobile as Ogre, that's a pretty big disappointment. And while we can't get a good look at how the knee joints are working, I'm not going to expect much more than 90 degrees out of this. Okay, well the cat keeps jumping up in my lap, so I'm just going to keep her here and hope she doesn't bump the mic. And she just stepped directly on it. Great. Looking at the positives though, this is actually a pretty cool design. He's got these really neat claws on the end of his shoulder armor that lets him hold his sword sort of like the Sengoku Astray. He's got some missile pods that open up on the shoulder panels as well, some clear bits on his head, and it looks like his arms are going to be compatible with those wrist spikes that came with the Ogre Jinx. That is assuming they aren't already included with this kit. So I think this could be a pretty neat model for people who are really, really big fans of this design. But for the most part, I do think Bandai kind of dropped the ball on this one. Next up, we have the Haro loader. It's a Haro in a loader. Yes, I love you. You're a lovely kitty. I enjoy your company, but this is the last time I want you flailing around in my lap. You're getting hair everywhere, you're getting tangled up in cables, and you're purring into the microphone. Please get out of my room. So I guess I could talk a little bit about the Gundam Tertium, even though I kind of talked about this last time. We do have some new images of it. We have box art, as you can see in front of you. It is very low quality, but it's enough to get a good idea of what we got going on here. I also finally figured out what the point of the name of this Gundam is. It's Tertium. Tertium is in third, because it's the Gundam Mark III. And the Gundam itself looks kind of cool. I still think it looks more like a Throne Gundam than it does like a Gundam Mark III, and I also have not a ton of desire to pick this one up. So while it is probably going to end up being a pretty good kit, it is one that I'm going to most likely pass on. All right, next up we have the Death Scythe Rosette, which is the, what is this? 1, 2, 3, I guess fourth Glory of Losers kit if you count the extra finished version of the Wing Zero with the triple gun. And out of all the Glory of Losers variants, I gotta say, this one's kind of my least favorite. Now I know this is something that probably a lot of people are going to be hyped for, but I just do not like this design at all. I think there are ways to give the Death Scythe wings that don't literally look like the Death Scythe Hell wings that could work, but I think just slapping a pair of Wing Gundam wings on it is not the way to go about doing that. The biggest thing that bothers me about these wings is they just don't really aesthetically mesh with the Death Scythe's body. It looks like someone took a totally different Gundam's wings and slap them on Death Scythe's back. The one thing that I actually do like about this wing pack is the way that the wings fold down to meet together at the bottom, kind of like the Gold Frame Astray. But again, while this is a cool backpack design, it just doesn't work for Death Scythe. Fortunately though, for all the wing fans out there, this is a kit that is very, very, very likely to get picked up by Bluefin, so if you actually do enjoy this design, it shouldn't be too hard for you to get a hold of. So that's pretty much it for Gunpla News today, guys. I had some other stuff that I was considering talking about, but I've just gone on for too long long already, so I'm going to end it right here. So thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to subscribe if you're new to Channel 2S for more Gundam news and just other general Gundam content as well. I've been kind of preoccupied building the perfect grade red frame, but that'll be done very soon, and I'll finally be getting out some more non-Gunpla news content for you guys. But if you enjoyed this video in particular, leave a like, and as always, I'm your host, Second Soundwave, and I'll see you next time. Take care, guys.